southern perimeter is considered a high radiation area. Maintain this.
Check your fire, acknowledge. Abort! Holy hell! The Geiger counter is up the dial!
His skin is melting! Help!
After our spectacular ride today through that forest, we settled in for the night at the Royal Hotel in Hill End. That forest looked a little post-apocalyptic to me, and it kind of got me thinking about a conversation we had out on the track today. I didn't want to open up a can of worms, but I think that can has already been opened. And I'm talking about preparing for the worst if things go bad in the world. And when I say go bad, you know, if shit really hits the fan, what would you do? Is there anything you could do? Are you as prepared as you could be, and would you have the skills to survive out in the wilderness and look after yourself and your family if you had to? I've heard about these people called Doomsday preppers, and I imagined that they would be these eccentric characters running into their fallout shelters underneath their homes, wearing tinfoil over their heads so the government couldn't read their thoughts. And there they'd sit for an eternity, munching away on their endless rations of spam in a can. But these days, I can't help but take another look and be a little more realistic about it. A couple of years back, I was riding a horse through the Kosciuszko Mountains in New South Wales with a very experienced bushman, and this conversation came up. He explained to me that he could easily survive out here. He knows how to find rivers and creeks, can harvest and purify his own water, and trap animals for food, cook on an open fire. And he had good bearings in the bush, like a natural sense of direction for roaming the wild and not getting lost and remaining safe, which certainly puts him in a better position than most. In his own words, he said, "You'd never find me." And then I thought, how many people in society today would actually have a chance of survival if they had to flee their homes with their families? What's your ability to find fresh water? Could you successfully administer first aid or even advanced medical attention to yourself or to a family member if you needed to? How many people know about natural remedies and medicines anymore? How many of you out there can even start a fire and use one? And when I say use one, not just to cook meals and boil water, but for light, warmth, burning off rubbish, and to signal for help. Or, if needed, use the fire and still remain undetected. So I asked myself, did I have a chance if things go south, as in, to live remote indefinitely? And the answer is yes. After spending so much time living with very little, I'd actually thrive. And let's really talk about this for a second. If you have a basic caravan, or a camper van or a motorhome, and you've travelled parts of Australia, then you too are already there. You're prepared if you have to live remotely, or off-grid as they say, even if it was for an extended period of time. I'm confident in taking our Winnie off-road into extremely remote terrain. It's simple in design, so I can fix anything that goes wrong and keep us on the road. We can carry lots of fresh water and food, and we know we can use it very sparingly if we need to, because we've done it. We generate our own electricity with solar power, and I've got my KLR 650 mounted to the back. If I need to go and get supplies or to get help, I can. We can communicate through UHF radios, and we can even travel at night if we needed to. So I guess we would have a great chance of looking after ourselves if things really went to doo-doo. As a matter of fact, I honestly believe that the entire RV community would fare very well in a wasteland, because we've already had practical experience at it. Even if you don't consider yourself a survivalist, well, you now have those skills. Now, I'm not just talking about war and nuclear fallout. That's a little dramatic, and you have to forgive me for the serious tone on the intro of this video. But I'm talking about if we eventually reached a societal collapse, energy grid hackings, a virus that spread around the world that made the plague look like a common cold, total government tyranny or civil war, or some sort of extreme and sudden change in our climate or weather, or even a biological threat to our farming. Many things can happen and have happened. Even something as simple as homelessness due to floods or bushfires. In any event, just how reliant have we become on our government and our leaders? How reliant are we on them to fix everything and provide everything for us? And if those conveniences should suddenly, for whatever reason, stop, would you survive? Or simply and unnecessarily just starve to death? Have modern conveniences ruined us in a way? I mean, without the aid of the internet, because say that's down, how many of us can actually catch a fish, identify it as being edible, and scale and cook it? Or grow our own produce, or defend ourselves and our loved ones from the ravages of society? Do you know how to use a CB radio when the phone lines are down? Do you know how to and have the confidence to use a firearm? Theorists say that the most valuable item in a post-apocalyptic world is not food. It's actually ammunition, because with ammunition, you can have everything you want. Now that's quite an uncomfortable fact, isn't it? If there was total cessation of our food supply tomorrow, how long do you believe it would take between civility as we know it to total anarchy in society? It's 7 days. If you haven't eaten a meal in 7 days, and either has your family, what would you be prepared to do to a person in your neighbourhood if they refuse to share their pantry? Be honest and have a think about that. You'll immediately realise that the society we live in today is held together with sticky tape. It's fake. I mean, did you see how people behaved when they were just trying to buy toilet paper during COVID? That's just a snapshot of how things would turn. I don't want you to just take my word for it. It's fact that many billionaires today are focused on how to survive with a societal collapse, particularly power grid failures, including buying cars and aeroplanes that are less reliant on computer technology, so they'll still function after an electromagnetic pulse that will knock out anything electrical. It seems they are shifting away from the idea of a nuclear blast being our biggest threat. The real threat now seems to be our energy grids, which supports our phones, our banking, our food and water supply, our petrol, our warmth, everything. Imagine calling 000 when there's no connection. There are no police. There's no ambulance. There's just nothing. We are basically a cashless society now, so you couldn't even buy petrol at the service station. The food in all our supermarkets would spoil within several days due to no refrigeration. Now, before you think that this all seems a little over the top to be even having this conversation, think again. This happened in Canada last year, where for 24 hours there was no fuel and no ATMs and no buying food. The power company, Suncor Energy, remains tight-lipped about the issue, but it was the most significant cyber security breach of an energy company in history. It was a real mess. Why are the world elites like Mark Zuckerberg building a huge underground bunker on an island just off Hawaii? The elaborate bunker is being built as we speak, and it's at a cost of $270 million. And just why is it being built on an island just off Hawaii? Well, so everyday people like you and I can't get to it. Bill Gates has underground security areas under every one of his homes. That's homes, plural. Some of the world's billionaires are building bunkers in New Zealand due to that country's safe location on Earth. And hidden away in South Dakota's remote Black Hills is Vivos X Point, and it's the largest bunker in the world, built by Robert Vicino. Speaking of bunkers, something I only learnt recently, and that is seed vaults or seed banks. Now these massive vaults are government owned and are built and maintained in extremely remote parts around the planet. The largest one is in Norway. It is heavily fortified and it contains over 1 million plant, fruit and vegetable seeds from all over the world, just in case our biosecurity is threatened in the way of plant diseases caused by insect plagues, human tampering, or, God forbid, a nuclear winter where nothing will grow. Is this the reason why Elon Musk wants to colonise Mars? He states we must become multi-planetary to ensure the survival of the human race. So when you boil all of this down, you do need to ask the question, what's going on? What information do our billionaires have privilege to that we don't? What do our governments really know? Like, what's the reason for all of this? Is there something I've missed that has been staring me in the face the whole time? Lately, I hear people say, boy oh boy, fancy bringing kids into this troubled world. Well, I don't see it that way. I love my family, and considering what our ancestors lived through, 2 world wars, the Depression in the 1930s, the Cold War, and Vietnam, I remain hopeful about the future. I really do. Surely we've got this. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. In the meantime, we're out of here. Wow, look at that edge. Just